group that I approached, and we kind of approached each other about talking to the community more so that they can be educated about what's going on. So I want to really just say this. We're in historical times right now. Education from the primary, secondary, and higher ed is really going to be transformed forever. And initially, the thinking is, oh my God, what a challenge. That I but I think we're just stepping into, we kind of approached each other about talking to the community more so that they can be educated about what's going on. So I want to really just say this. We're in historical times right now. Education from the primary, secondary, and higher ed I'm hearing a repeat. Is really going to be transformed forever. And initially, the thinking, I'm hearing a repeat or something, but what I wanted to say was that some of the big concerns for funding, big concerns about accountability for schools, we're going to deal with that. So HB3 has funded our schools for the next 2 years. We're going to be looking at accountability as we get in session in January. And then we're definitely concerned about moving forward. Our schools are concerned because we've got HB3 funding. And then how do we move forward when revenue probably will be decreased after the next 2 years? We are concerned, but as a state, we're working on it and we're hoping to fix it. So thank you, Ms. Perry, and I'm all ears and ready to hear what we're going to be talking about tonight. So thanks again.
Thank you, Representative Hawkins. We really appreciate your dedication and all the hard work that you've done to make sure that our community, for one, stays involved and informed on the changes that are happening from your perspective. So thank you so much for your diligence and your commitment. And I really, really appreciate the efforts that you have been championing for our community for many, many years. So thank you. Well, next I'm going to go ahead and introduce somebody who I've come to know very well. Somebody who I've had the pleasure to work hand in hand with for the last year since I've been on the school board, and this is Superintendent Mr. Pedro Martinez. We're also very happy to have Miss Tiffany Grant joining us. I like to look at them, well, Tiffany, definitely as a valuable resource. She has been such an amazing help in my transition into this work, into this world. So I thank them both. Let's start the conversation with how SAISD had to work quickly to facilitate the continued learning when it was evident students would not be able to return to the classroom in light of COVID pandemic. Let's talk about the transition. So I did not mention, and I should have before, that this is more of an engaging panel discussion. So, you know, there's some questions that we're going to cover like bullet points, but the whole premise is for us to really be able to talk like we do often, you know, in the board or in other community meetings. So feel free to jump right in as you see fit. I'm going to go ahead and start with Mr. Martinez, since he is he's leading the district as far as making decisions when it comes to workforce and what happens when our kids go back to school. Can our kids go back to school? That type of stuff. So, Mr. Martinez, I'm sorry, I got a glitch here.
Sure. Well, thank you, Trustee Perry, and thank you for your leadership on the board. So first of all, you know, our board was very decisive and took action right away as soon as we saw the COVID crisis. They immediately empowered me to make decisions very quickly. And I remember this, it was right before spring break. Our Chief Technology Officer, Dr. Ken Thompson, was already concerned about what was happening, and he called me and he said, "Look, I have a vendor that can hold 30,000 devices in case we need them." And I'll tell you, at first I said, "Well, you know, we're gonna open up school again. I know there's rumors about schools closing, but we're gonna open up schools again after the break." But I said, "But have that vendor keep those devices, you know, on the side for us in case we need them." Well, a week later, Next thing you know, COVID hits our community. The state is starting to see closures across the state, not requiring a closure yet. And then our board acted immediately. And so we actually put in that order for 30,000 devices, got them at a very, very low price, lower than most of my colleagues around the country, because of course, when they started buying, then you can imagine what happened in the market. And what I didn't expect was that out of almost 49,000 students, we'd be distributing over 40,000 devices, where with our schools being closed. So imagine the logistics of that and trying to secure those assets. And then at the same time, we knew that our community was going to have significant needs beyond academics. So we started with 8 meal sites. Within 2 days, that number more than quadrupled. And then we created a delivery program, which we call SISD Eats. Year to date, we're well over 1 million meals that we've served to the community. And we're going to continue that through June and into the summer. More importantly, we took our district, we were wanting to go to a one-to-one device for every student in 3 years, and we did it in 3 weeks. We unleashed the creativity of over 3,200 teachers. We trained them in a week. The good news is we had been working on the digital content for a couple of years now, and our real challenge was just devices and internet access. You know, in terms of the curriculum, we already had been working on that for a while. And then by having, you know, leaders like Dr. Thompson, we were able to deploy these devices in a very safe way. And so, you know, fast forward, you know, we've closed out our school year. We have a digital playground that our students are still using as we speak. We've had over a couple 100,000 hits. By the way, we're getting, some of my teachers are getting notarized or recognized by the state for their amazing digital lesson plans. But we also know that it's taking us a while to reach all of our students. Within the first 2 weeks, there was over 20% of our students that we hadn't been able to find. We have now gotten that down to, we've reached over 97% of our students, but we still have just under 1,600 that we were ready to block walk last week. And then when the mayor extended the stay-at-home orders, we weren't able to block walk. Ms. Grant has been working with families directly who have actually been hit by the COVID virus. And I'll let her talk about just the partnership she had with the city, the nonprofits. It has been an all on hands deck community effort. I couldn't be prouder of my team, and I'm be happy to talk about it as we start thinking about the new school year, because that's where we're at, Trustee Perry. We are now planning for the new school year, and we'll have hopefully I'll have some time to give you more details on that. But I'd like to ask Ms. Grant to talk about just some of the work that she did with our partners in reaching the families that were hit with this terrible virus.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez, and thank you, Ms. Perry. I echo everyone's sentiment. I'm just honored to be in this space with you tonight. I have been honored to serve in a different capacity as it relates to working directly with families impacted by the virus, but we couldn't do that work alone. The city, communities and schools, and several organizations have come to us saying, what can we do to help? They've actually deployed not only funding, but gift cards that I was able to take. And during the time when everything was shut down, I was getting creative. We were shopping at Luby's. We were shopping at restaurants for bleach and gloves and anything that we could find to help families who couldn't leave their homes because of being quarantined. So we would do safe, no contact drops, give air hugs from across the street, and just let them know that SAISD in the city of San Antonio was standing with them. I am continuing to get those calls, and we're continuing to deploy resources to this day, but we couldn't have done that without partners across the city. Communities and schools alone deployed nearly $30,000 in emergency funds, not only for families impacted by the virus, but families who lost employment because of the restaurants and other stores and other places being shut down as a result of it. So it's really been a beautiful grassroots effort. SAHA coming together with VIA to provide internet access in our housing communities to help families be able to tap in. The Spurs giving coffee gift cards to our staff just to brighten their day. And we're looking at how we deploy all of those e-gift cards. But we've just had an outpouring of support from across the city. And if I got to naming them all, it would be difficult. Our Connect campaign through our SAISD Foundation, that's raised nearly $900,000 to help us be able to provide the hotspots and the technology for our students, because that was an unexpected expense. And so everything that we've been doing, we of course didn't budget for, but thanks to the generosity of so many organizations, we've been able to help. But the families that I've come in contact with, we've had our share of family members who have been lost as a result of the virus. So it's how do we extend resources to children? And not only resources, tangible things like food and cleaning agents, but counseling services and wraparound services when needed. So we've had to really, call our partners in different sectors to help wrap our arms around our families that have been negatively or adversely impacted. So just super thankful to Mr. Martinez and our board, to include Ms. Perry, to be given the opportunity to go out and do this work. Thankful for the resolution that was passed, allowing Mr. Martinez to make on-the-spot decisions about how we deployed resources, because we haven't stopped and we won't. We won't. So thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Ms. Grant. I really appreciate your diligence. Every time I have an opportunity, I scream from the hills your good graces. And I have a unique opportunity, and I'm very blessed to be able to work in a district that I can speak to, that this work is happening from the parental standpoint. I was the first one out to these meal sites to make sure that these meals were being distributed. We were greeted with smiles all the time. Even seeing the school buses in certain apartment complexes throughout the East Side, knowing that our babies won't go hungry, it really does something to a parent to understand that your district is here for you and your kids, especially in times like this. So I can attest, I can affirm, I can confirm that the team is working hard to make sure that we're as committed and connected to our families as possible during this time. I want to speak really briefly on, because I've been hearing about the staff, and we've been talking about the staff and how amazing they've been. But I want to speak to some anxieties that, come through the community all the time when change is present, right? We're always trying to figure out what happens. And one of the questions that we have here is, has there been any impact on the workforce or performance? And I'm gonna go a little bit further with this. Is there any expected workforce issues moving forward? Of course, we're planning for right now, but what can that look like potentially next year when we open up?
Yeah, so Trustee Perry, it's we have sort of good and bad news. So as part of the initial CARE Act that the Congress passed, we were supposed to get funding across, and this was we got over $1 billion in Texas alone, and that was supposed to really help our most highest poverty students. The state decided to take those funds and basically supplement or supplant what they already had in their general budget, so that districts won't get any additional funds. But the silver lining on that is that they're keeping us stable for the next school year. We don't know what will happen the following biennium because we just don't have enough information about what the longer term impacts of what COVID has had on the current economy. And I know that I served on the city that on the commission to really look at how to reopen San Antonio, and I got to hear my colleagues working in hotels and in restaurants and the challenges they've had. And we all, agree that together, united, we have to figure out how to build confidence in the community because they're trying to protect their employees as well that have been furloughed or maybe temporarily unemployed. And so in our district, we're keeping our priority for next year is to keep our staff. As we open up the new school year, my biggest concern is that because of social distancing, we may need more staff, or we might have our staff work, even harder than they have because, we have to figure out a way how to have both a digital learning environment for students that may have to learn from home or other parts of our school building outside of our classrooms, because we will be limited in the number of students we'll have in classrooms. So the good news is we'll be able to we'll have stability in staff. I actually wish I had more resources to hire more staff. And the other thing that I know that we also need to do is parents right now, first of all, they're our partners more than ever. I think they see now what teachers have, what the role of teachers are and in working with their children. But more importantly, as we look at the new school year, if we're required to implement a hybrid model, which is students coming in part-time to our schools, while part-time they're learning from home still, it just means that, again, we're going to have to partner with parents that much more. By the way, we have to partner with employers because it's going to create childcare issues for our parents. And so again, these are just challenges that I see coming in the new year. But right now, for this year, our finances will be stable. And again, we're going to work with Representative Governor Hawkins, who I know has who prioritizes education. And we'll do it all in her power to protect education, but we have to work with her and our legislators to hopefully make sure that cuts don't happen during the next biennium.
Thank you for that, Ms. Martinez. I think at this time, I appreciate you being completely honest, because I think people need to understand what we're faced with, making these type of decisions, trying to remain thoughtful in the process. And I think that transparency, as I say all the time, these type of forums, the ability to speak to the community so they can understand what's happening is very, very important. So, let's just continue to keep that focus in mind and make sure that as we continue all of these transitions, that we're still updating our community and our staff and families of what's happening. So thank you for that. Now, we have a lot of questions, but we have a lot of people that need to talk. So I'm just going to kind of skim through some things. You kind of spoke to a lot of it already. But one thing that people are asking is, what does the delivery of remote instruction look like for our teachers? And you kind of spoke to that and you talked about the training and stuff like that. But I know for myself, some of our teachers were struggling. They were like, I don't know how to do this. And then we also know that some parents have those issues with not being as tech savvy as we've had to learn to be in the last few months. So, just speak a little bit about the monitor quality of content. I think we talked about preparation for teachers. We talked about accessibility, devices, internet, supplies, all that good stuff. But how are we monitoring the content? One of my personal fears, and it's been fears of other constituents, is the quality of learning in this new norm. How are we ensuring that our kids will be ready and they won't have a huge gap that they need to make up for when they go back to school?
So I think, Ms. Perry, we start with the fact that, we are working around the clock to, first of all, to ensure that we have safety procedures. We're learning from other countries. So we've actually been studying other countries and what they're doing. We're studying what other districts are doing around the nation. We're actually in the process of engaging parents as we speak now. We did a huge staff engagement last week where we did surveys. And we're doing the same thing with parents this week. That's rolling out starting in earnest tomorrow. So several of our schools are having parent meetings all throughout this week and next week. And really what we're sharing with parents is, we're looking at schedules. We're bringing them into the decision making and saying, okay, as we look at next year, if we can't have all of our students all at once in our classrooms, which way would be preferable for you? Is it an AM PM type of shift where some children are coming in the morning, and then a different set of children are coming in the afternoon? Is it an AB day, what we call? So some children are coming in on Mondays and Wednesdays, other children are coming in Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so we're having those conversations with both staff and parents. And one of the things that I'll share with you that I'm seeing is, we're going to have, right now we have students that can log on to our digital playground. And so I encourage parents who, by the way, as long as they're registered, they keep their devices all summer, they have access to our digital playground all summer. It's every grade level. I'll tell you, my own children have been on it, really strong content. It's updated on a weekly basis. So I want parents to get a sense of that. The one thing, Trustee Perry, that we saw was that we do need to do a lot more training for parents. What we're working on is videos for parents, even videoing parents themselves, because These are all applications that have great data, so we can see how many times children are logging on. We can see the assignments that they're doing. But the real challenge is, sometimes sometimes technology works great, and sometimes it just doesn't. And that's even for the best of us who have access to technology on a regular basis. And so one of the things that was fascinating is we had a three to four person help desk before COVID hit. We now have over almost 18 people working from home, which, by the way, all of them, I hear a lot about the great customer service they're providing. So I think it's a start. But now what I'm also hearing from our teachers who are working with our children, working with our parents, saying, we want to be more active with our parents. We want to actually help them. We want to, especially for maybe even grandparents who were afraid of technology or just, get really frustrated with technology very quickly. We want to provide more. So I feel very confident that when we start the new school year, because I'm going to be an optimist, I think restrictions will be lessened, just like they've been lessening every week. I think we'll be able to do more home visits. Of course, we'll have to wear masks and gloves and have all the safety precautions, as little contact, minimal contact as possible. But I could see us doing visits to homes to check in on children during those hybrid days, those days when they're learning from home, checking in to see if they're having challenges getting into our applications. Unfortunately, during the COVID period after spring break, we were restricted. We could not even go visit homes. Even Ms. Grant, when she was delivering gift cards, it was under very restrictive conditions. And so I feel that this next school year, because I'll tell you, my teachers wanted to get out there. They wanted to go out there. They wanted to see their children. It just, we weren't allowed. So expect us to be hands-on. Expect us, and one of the things that I'm telling our principals is when you talk to our parents, let them know this is the beginning of the conversation. What I see, Ms. Perry, is this is our ability, our opportunity to engage our families in a way like we've never had before. To literally work hand in hand and say, you know what? We don't have a roadmap for this. We have our best thinking. I have really smart people. We're bringing all of our resources to the table. And by the way, that includes our partners, our community partners. Brian, who's a great partner with the Rotary Club. We're bringing all of our resources, right? Our Alamo College partners, UTSA. We are bringing our resources to the table, but we need to do it with you. And the reality is, and this is where, again, I'm gonna need help from employers, because employers need to be at the table as well to help us, because again, parents are going to be struggling more and more. Again, and by the way, this hybrid model, I believe, will be across our entire community, whether it's colleges or K-12 across every district, because all of us will be under the same challenge, at least for the first semester, that we'll have to social distance. We'll be limited in the number of children that can be in classrooms. And so we're going to have to all work together on this. So Ms. Perry, I would say right now the conversations are just beginning, but we're going to have them throughout the summer. And my goal is in July 20th, we're going to start summer programs. And really what we want to do is bring in students and their families and to have them see how we're doing things, to have them see the precautions we're taking, to actually check in on the students, to see how their mental health is doing. Because we know that so many of our students right now might be going through crisis and we don't know it. We know that, there's just, different issues that are happening across our communities. And so I apologize the background, as you can imagine, working from home, you can hear my children. This is about the time of night where they start fighting their mom for going to bed. But again, these are the issues that we're all dealing with, right? Just trying to do this remote learning. And so again, my commitment is that, we're going to be involving our parents more than ever, and we're going to do this together, because I know together we'll be stronger together.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I think we can still use some extra support. So you hear all of the amazing partners that have jumped on board and helped us, but I love the fact that we are allowing our entire community the opportunity to help us get to where we need to get, because ultimately our children's success means our community's success. So we have to be really careful of keeping that at the center of the focus. We talk about workforce, we talk about it all the time. We got to step up. We have to make sure that, through all this, and we've said it as a board that, it's some challenging times, but I think it also affords a lot of us the opportunity to become creative, right? Those things that we thought were outside of the box one time are totally in our reach right now. So I think it's been a wake-up call for a lot of people, and this is going to challenge us to do more, because we realize that we can, and it's going to take all of us to champion for the success of our children in our entire community. So thank you so much, Mr. Martinez. And I just have one more thing that I have to talk about. Again, thank you, because you've been thorough at kind of hitting all the other questions. I think you have about 50 of them, but you've been talking about them as we go. So a huge one, you know, this has been huge for all of us board members. This has been huge for the superintendent's office. What does graduation look like this year? And, you know, what are we doing about those high school seniors? You know, are we still, is there a negative impact for those who are looking to go into college? What does those relationships look like with our career counselors and stuff like that? So.
Yeah, so you know, one of our big concerns have been our seniors. So first of all, we have summer programs for our seniors who still need credits all the way through July. And so the first message I tell our, and by the way, we even took seniors who dropped out last year and brought them back, because of the suspension of the state assessment system, we were able to bring back seniors from last year and say, hey, if you just need a credit or two, the state assessment system isn't required this year, we can get you a diploma. And so we're literally having, and we're giving them devices and hotspots so they can be earning credits all through July. So that's number one. For our graduating seniors, first of all, you know, our college advisors have been working with them, and sadly, Trustee Perry, I've been seeing this nationally. More and more seniors are deferring college. We're seeing this across the state of Texas and nationally because they're worried about the economy. They're worried about having to stay home and work. I'm still encouraging our students again to take advantage of college, even if it's, you know, we have the Alma Promise, which is a great program for some of our students that need that. I'm asking them, don't give up on your dreams, but it is a challenge. And I empathize with our students, especially when they're becoming, in some cases, the sole breadwinners for their families, as their parent or parents have gotten laid off. So we are seeing that, but we're constantly working with them. We have, by the way, the highest financial aid application completion rate in the country. We've been in a race with urban districts across the country, and I think we're almost at 80% of our seniors filled out their financial aid, which is the leading indicator for going to college. And so this was the first time that we had this competition, this national competition with other urban districts, and it's the first time that I think that we are so far right now at the top. And I think we're going to be finishing getting results in June. So right now we're number one. For graduation, when the governor allowed outside graduations, we jumped on that, because even though we had thought about virtual graduations, I knew that our students were missing each other. They really wanted to see each other. They hadn't been able to connect since spring break. The one limitation, and I know I'm getting a little bit of pushback, and so are you, Trustee Perry, is we limited the number of guests. We limited the number of guests to 2. And the reason was that it was because, and we did it for every high school, regardless of their size, because it was about equity, and we have some very large high schools, and we wanted to control the crowds in and outside of our stadium. And so seating wasn't an issue. It's the fact that I couldn't guarantee that we could control the crowds and social distancing outside in the parking lot as the families were coming in and out of the stadium. You know that graduations are very festive. All of you have been to graduations. You know how people can't help themselves. They're just excited, and they're a big deal in San Antonio. And I know that they're a big deal in San Antonio. And so unfortunately, we are limiting the guests and it's only out of safety and precaution. And I feel bad about that. I wish I didn't have to, but one of the things I've shared with my trustees is, you can't win in this, right? So I'm either going to get criticized for limiting the number of guests. And so if you go to one of our graduations, the stadium will look empty in some of those events, because literally we are social distancing everybody and we're limiting the number of people. But if I allow a lot of people and we have a breakout, we have a COVID-19 breakout, and it comes from our stadium. Imagine how, the lack of confidence we will have from our community about our schools. And I just can't take that risk, knowing that we have to open up schools. We have summer programs coming in July. The first day of school was August 10th. And I just decided, in my career, I've recognized when the risks are just too big, and I'm just not going to take that risk, because it's about our children. It's about our families that are coming in, almost 49,000 students coming into this next year who count on us. And I can't have a shaken confidence. In fact, I need the opposite. I need to build confidence. And so I know we're taking a lot of pushback on that. And I apologize, Trustee Perry, and to the other trustees, but we are going to limit them to 2 guests per student, but we will have graduation starting June 11th. We're going to have 2 a day, 1 in the morning, 1 at night. We space them out by 7 hours so we can clean every seat, clean every spot of that stadium. I'm going to be there at every one of them. And so, again, we're going to celebrate our students. By the way, it's going to be live stream. All of our seniors still have their laptops. Their family members can see it live stream. And so again, I'm looking forward to that, but it's coming up.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. I appreciate you speaking up and saying, hey, this is why we're doing what we're doing. Of course, that has been a area of contention for a lot of people. And, nobody has the right answer when it comes to this right now. So, as I hear all the time in meetings that, we're building this plane out as we're flying. So I want to thank everybody for their patience and understanding through this process, because there are difficult decisions that need to be made. We don't agree with them all the time, but again, the safety and assurance that our families remain healthy and safe during this time is the top of our priority. So thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Martinez, Ms. Grant. Just want to go ahead and let you all know that Ms. Grant is answering questions in the chat box. Like I said, we have so much content to cover, and I'm looking forward to conversations with all of the panelists. So anything that you want to know, go ahead and put in the chat. Those conversations will continue, and we will acknowledge every question that comes in. So thank you again, Mr. Martinez, Ms. Grant, for your work and your dedication and commitment to our students in SAIC. I'm pleasured to work alongside you guys. All right, so without any further ado, we're very proud to have leadership from the University of Texas at San Antonio and my favorite HBCU, St. Philip's College. And so we have Dr. Myron Anderson, who's the Vice President for Inclusive Excellence at UTSA. And we have Dr. Mordecai Brownlee, who's the Vice President of Student Success at St. Philip's College, who is also accompanied by ACCD District 2 Board member, Mr. Jose Macias, and one of ACD's caring instructors, Ms. Margaret Richardson. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 people to talk to us from the collegiate standpoint. And so I anticipate a very meaty, interesting conversation here. Let me just go ahead and jump in and have a conversation about the impact that COVID-19 has had on the college and university level as a whole. Sure, there's been a whole lot of challenges in that regard as well. So we want to speak to funding received. I know we opened that up when we asked Representative Gervin about funding from the state level, but funding for colleges, what is that looking like? And I'm gonna call to you first, Mr. Anderson, since you're at UTSA, and then I'm gonna follow that up with Dr. Brownlee. You're muted. We can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Sorry about that. So I'll go ahead. I am not the budget person, so I have to lay that out first in terms of that. I do know that we're receiving some fundings for the system and for the situation. And I also know that really in our institution, University of Texas San Antonio, it's a key piece of the enrollment. And so right now we're looking like our enrollment is in a good position. And therefore, those things look good in regards to our budget. And we just have to really monitor that and watch that. Our projections look solid, but it's kind of like the phrase, until we see it happen, we don't know if it's going to happen. So we want to be cautious. But in essence, in terms of how our funding is developed and how it works, it's tied to our enrollment, and our enrollment looks strong. We're also hoping to, or not even just hoping, but taking actions academically in terms of how we deliver online instruction, how we improve our faculty's delivery skills and ability. and in my area, how we work with incorporating and infusing culturally responsive teaching into the online environment to create a greater quality of instruction, especially for our diverse students. We're doing all those things to raise the bar and raise the level of instruction that we believe will promote even a greater opportunity for our students to still be in class and to still be enrolled, to keep our budget strong and allow us to service the needs of the San Antonio community.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I know that there had been some relief for students in colleges where they can apply for some type of relief during this time. Are you all offering anything like that to your students?
We are, and we've actually created a fund that we're all that people are giving into, faculty and staff, and just to be honest with you, the president and really the senior leadership went ahead and gave 10% of our salaries to this fund to create a large, or to start the endowment process, if you will. So we all chipped in and did that. We were grateful to do it, and we all enjoyed doing that. It was a very easy decision, but we're also using our development office to further raise monies too. So you've got the funding from the CARES Act, you've got that funding in place, but then we also have some funding from our faculty and then our alumni and our community to create this fund for our students and for our faculty and staff going forward. So this is going to be a fund for everybody who may be in need. I don't have the number for you. That's our development officer's kind of ball of wax, or his area to speak to, but it's been growing very well and very strong.
Thank you. I know we talked about, anxiety that students have right now around even attending colleges. So I think it was a very good a step in the right direction for institutions to come around and understand that they need monetary help as well. There's a whole lot of things that people are thinking about, and college is not at the forefront of their thought right now. So
we also did some other things. We tried to address elements of the digital divide in a lot of ways, with its laptop program that we had in place for our students, creating Wi-Fi access so they could have access to Wi-Fi at different times in different places. So we've done some other things as well to really promote that holistic education process and to really reduce that divide as much as we can. There's so many pieces to divide, and my PhD is in instructional technology, and I've done lots of research on the digital divide. And I know there's bandwidth and there's other things and there's infrastructure and there's so many things that are part of that divide. But we've worked hard to try to see how we can reduce that divide as much as we could, even creating instruction models where you meet students where they are and you look at that lowest common denominator in regards to developing instruction, so you don't have instruction that's so heavy and bandwidth heavy that it won't be allowed to be realized by certain students. How do you create that hybrid opportunity where you've got asynchronous learning blended in with other elements to allow greater access for our students? So we're looking at it from a curriculum piece as well, and not necessarily as an infrastructure physical piece, but all those come together to create strategies to reduce the digital divide.
Thank you. And I think we're going to dig into, I know for sure we're going to dig into digital divide a little bit more deeply with Mr. Dillard, just kind of talk about how we're dealing with that as a community. So thank you for that information, Ms. Anderson. I appreciate it. Dr. Brownlee, how's everything going over there at St. Philip's? Is there any funding that's been received over there at our amazing HBCU/Hispanic serving institution? How's everything going?
Well, thank you, Ms. Perry, Trustee Perry, again, for the opportunity. You're one of our pride and joys. We're very proud about your service to the community and being a graduate of St. Philip's College. On behalf of our president, Dr. Adina Williams-Lawston, our chancellor, Mike Flores, as well as our board of trustees, and it's great to see Trustee Macias with us here on tonight. And so we're very proud about our opportunity to be able to serve our students in the San Antonio and greater area. The Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act has made available to the Alamo colleges, more specifically St. Philip's College, funds to be able to support our students. For those that are unaware, that are tuning in, The CARES Act funds distribution was based off of two primary factors. One of those being the overall enrollment head count of the institution. The second being the amount of full-time Pell Grant recipient students at an institution. So for St. Philip's College, that made available roughly about $3.4 million was made available through the CARES Act fund, more specifically the Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund. So it made those funds available to our institutions to be able to support our quality of instruction, to support our IT infrastructure. And so part of that first tranche of CARES Act funds, 50% of those funds, so for St. Philip's College, that would be $1.7 million, was made available to students to support their relief needs directly. Now, we're talking about for students that may need to purchase groceries, pay for rent, utility bills, healthcare expenses, childcare expenses, the real day-to-day needs and necessities of our students in their life. Now, globally, and I'm sure Trustee Macias will talk more about this, but that fund, even it was 1.4 for St. Philip's College, but district-wide, we're talking about over $11 million was made available just for the case in point of serving our students. And so to this day, each of the institutions are being made available for students, meeting with students, case managing students, getting them connected in our community with the resources that they need to continue their academic journeys. And we're doing an outstanding job at the Alamo colleges. And I will tell you, for St. Philip's College, of the $1.7 million that have been allocated just for the sake of supporting our students directly with their needs, we have awarded nearly the entire $1.7 million. I will tell you, as of today, I think we have less than $15,000 that's made available just out of that particular fund. Now, that shouldn't be interpreted to say that we have expended all of our funds that are available to students. We have an array of resources available. The Alamo College Foundation COVID-19 Student Impact Funds have really assisted our ability to be able to support students outside of the CARES Act funds, as well as the Chancellor's Keep Learning Plan, which has been a phenomenal plan to be able to continue to support students on their academic pathways and see the completion of it. We know at Alamo Colleges, we are the #1 provider of here in South Texas of higher education. We're committed to ensuring that we are empowering our diverse student population through academics, through workforce preparedness. I think it was just a day ago that it was released here in San Antonio, Bexar County, unemployment applications, over 115,000 applications were sent into the Bexar County. And so we realized that there's an opportunity to ensure the empowerment and the advancement of our community. A part of that Keep Learning Plan, Clean Slate, one of the things that we looked at doing was making sure that we were removing the barrier, the economic barrier that would have been present for students, which would have impacted their ability to continue their academic journey. Another part of that is our expanded Summer Momentum Plan, which incentivized students to continue on their academic journeys and awarding them with free academic instruction for the summer semester. So we're very proud about that. Our $1 payment plans, one of the things that we noticed a part of what our students were experiencing with COVID-19 and its implications were the financial impact and implications. And I believe it was Superintendent Martinez that talked about the economic communities in which we're serving, the implications that are associated with low socioeconomic communities. And so our chancellor, the board, their vision, their leadership, our presidents, were all on board with making sure that we had measures in place to ensure that economics was the last barrier present for our students. And then no cost testing. This is also an opportunity for us to strengthen the bridge between our high school partners. Superintendent Martino is here with us tonight, our other high school partners, families that would be impacted otherwise, to have the available funds to be able to pay for the assessment testing for their students. We're removing that barrier. And so again, very grateful for the opportunities that have been provided to us, and we continue to move the needle forward. Enrollment for us for the summer is very strong at St. Philip's College, 16% ahead of where we were this time last year. And we continue to grow, looking forward towards the fall. And that growth is occurring at all around at the Alamo colleges.
That is great. That is so great to hear. I think that for our community, specifically District 2, St. Philip's means so much to so many different people, and has been a strong pillar in the community and a lighthouse where people feel like they can go and get a quality education And I'm just so proud to be alumna and to know that this institution is still doing what it promised to do over 120 years ago when it opened up. So thank you so much for your hard work. Thank you to Dr. Lawson for her leadership, Mr. Dawson, everybody over there. Send them my regard and thank you for that. Also, I want to talk a little bit about same thing that we discussed earlier, which is the workforce. Has there been any changes to workforce since COVID has hit, as far as staffing?
So what I'll say for the Alamo colleges and St. Philip's College, as we all were watching our television screens and learning about the implications of COVID-19 and learning about it, I will tell you that our chancellor and our board were on the job, watching and meeting with the constituencies here in the Bexar County and greater area to learn how to guide this district. And they did an outstanding job. I was honored to be able to serve on part of the COVID task force. So I was one of the individuals that was chosen to be able to support the district and moving remotely. The other thing I take great pride in, and I'm sure that our board does, our chancellor, our presidents do, all 5,000 of our employees at the Alamo colleges take pride in. Outside of the spring break that was already scheduled starting the week of March 9th, we were only out of instruction one additional week. So that would have been spring break week, which was already scheduled, a scheduled outage. And then there was 1 week of transitioning as we were moving all of our courses online. So I will tell you that in terms of our workforce, our Alamo College's workforce, you're talking 5,000 employees being able to move online resources in a matter of days. We're talking 10 business days. We were moving mountains. The Board of Trustees expected it of us. Our chancellor certainly gave the charge of us at the colleges. And so for St. Philip's College and Dr. Lawson, there was no option but to ensure that our students were ready to go and that we had our students up and running as quickly as possible. So I will tell you right now, we're working primarily remotely. We continue to provide remote instruction through the summer. Our summer semester kicks off June 8th, and we will continue to provide that service to our students. I will tell you that as heard Superintendent Martinez talk about IT, we have IT for Alamo colleges working around the clock. And I think it was very important for us to make sure that as our students, keep in mind, I'll just give you some numbers here, just around 65% of our student population at the Alamo colleges was face-to-face. So you're talking about 65% of over 65,000 students having to move remote, and that's not easily done. So you're talking about an entire workforce needing to be prepared to serve those students and provide support to the anxieties of students who did not sign up for remote instruction, did not sign up for online instruction. Now they're dealing with the various implications associated with COVID-19, trying to remain safe themselves, be a lighthouse, if you will, for their families and their children, and still go to school. So we had to make sure that we were prepared and able to do that work. And we've been doing an outstanding job, and our students feel the same. We continue to make those check-ins with them. Alamo Colleges as a whole with its workforce has done a great job with daily call-ins, check-ins with their staff, being able to host Zoom meetings to meet with folks and make sure that their wellness and their well-being is being taken care of, and that we're able to provide the best service that we can for our students.
I'll chime in if I can a little bit on that in terms of the workforce. And I agree, a lot of things that Dr. Browning had communicated really align with UTSA. Our university, though, is about 30,000 students, a little bit more. And so we're looking at that number of students, but we're looking at trying to make a move to transition to where, how do we deliver all the services that support the human capital of the institution, the workforce, and our students, which is the most important capital we have in a virtual environment for success, okay? The health and well-being of our faculty, staff, and students is always number one. And then we have to figure out how we can move into this virtual world to still deliver the product, the education, the ability to connect with our communities. And that's what took some time, and it took a little bit of extra work. And we have to give credit to our workforce who burned the midnight hour, if you will, learning different things. Our faculty had to be trained. You're going to train over 2,000 faculty in basically 2 weeks. But it wasn't just that it was also the retraining and the repositioning to get better. and to come back and retool a little bit more. So there's that initial transition. Then there's also what we're going through now this summer. So the workforce had to really undergo a lot of change and structural change, intellectual change, if you will, but they were up for the task. So we've actually had to re-engineer a little bit how we do business on multiple fronts to allow us to serve our students. So the change was moving to a remote and virtual and how we can think differently to deliver our services. And I think the change coming back from this, whatever that back and new normal is how do we have a parallel approach where we utilize some of the knowledge and skills and ability that we learned in this environment? And then how do we package them and, if you will, align them to where we come back to the new normal, which may be a hybrid version of that. Let's take the good from this transaction and then meld it back in with whatever the new normal is to allow us to be better as an institution and serve the San Antonio community, our students, even better than we had in the past. That's really the exciting part about this, is how we come back and transition.
Absolutely. And I think that speaks to the creativity that I spoke of earlier. Like, there is a new way of doing business now. I mean, we're not going back. So it's good to know that our institutions are working, understanding that and making sure that we're preparing as best we can to meet the needs of our students in the new normal. I'm going to ask Mr. Macias to jump in and give us a little perspective from the board side. I know y'all have been working on a whole lot, just like we have been here in SAISD, making lots of difficult decisions. One thing people want to know, again, just kind of like what I spoke on, from our perspective, they want to know what's happening with graduations. Is there some funding that's happening? What are the big things that you guys as a board right now are dealing with in light of the COVID epidemic?
Well, thank you again. And I just want to echo Dr. Brownlee and his administration are just doing a wonderful job, and we really appreciate their hard work. But I also wanted to recognize Dr. Brownlee for his new graduate. He had a kindergarten graduate this year, so good job. But Dr. Brownlee was on point.
That baby's getting big quick. I remember when he was born. Congratulations. I'm sorry I had to jump.
It's okay, Alicia. But Dr. Brownlee was on point. One of the more critical directives that we gave the chancellor was to ensure that we sustained our staff. And even now, we have a CARES incentive for supporting our employees. So if there are employees that are in need, we're there to provide some assistance for them as well. It's important that we retain our talent. And so that was utmost. Student success is going to be derived from quality employees. So first thing we did in COVID-19 is ensure that we secured employment for the district. And secondly, we are now getting ready to embark in an adult promise type like program that the city of San Antonio is leading, where there is going to be an allocation of funding for those that are unemployed in this community to get additional workforce development certification, which is just enormous. So that collaboration is going to be exciting, especially as we continue to keep focus beyond COVID-19. We do not need to have this pandemic stop the momentum for Alamo College. Alamo College is trying to end generational poverty. The whole goal here, when we started some years back in instituting the Alamo Promise and its programs, is to finally end generational poverty. And the enrollment numbers still look positive. We've done work in the digital divide, and I look forward to hearing from Mr. Dillard a little later on that. But the first directive out of the gate was to ensure that every student had a laptop. And so when our staff did an assessment, 10% of our student body didn't have the resources to do remote learning. That was quickly closed within 2 weeks. So there's just a lot of focus on a lot of different areas. Our Alamo College team is on it. And right now we're in the midst of our budget discussions for next year. So that we're going to continue to look at things that are going to be critical to move forward. One other thing is that we froze hiring. So we're able to secure money from our budget for any other possible need by freezing hiring at this point. It means some of our current employees have to work harder, but as I mentioned earlier, we're doing everything we can to secure their positions We know they're working hard, and collectively, we're still going to keep moving this community forward. The one thing you said about graduation, last that I was told, we're going to move those to December. We have some virtual ones, but December still is a time that we can hold these graduations and still deliver that recognition that is earned. So we'll, to be continued, but December looks to be the date.
Awesome. I know we talk about just the challenges that we've had with graduations for high school, because it's such a huge event, right, in the lives of our youngsters. But I know my college graduation was the one. You know what I mean? So I could only imagine, the excitement and just the questions about what that looks like for our graduates. So thank you for your leadership and your work that you and the value that you brought to the Alamo College Board. I am going to digress just a little bit, and I might get in trouble. So don't get me, Miss McGee. But before I do, I want to bring Miss Margaret Richardson into the conversation. From my understanding, she's an instructor who works at Alamo Colleges, and we wanted to talk to her just to kind of test the temperature, the climate, to see how our students are doing from an instructional standpoint, somebody who's meeting with them, making sure that they're getting their lessons and things of that sort. So, Ms. Richardson, would you grace us with some information?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for inviting me to participate. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. In the classes that we had, none of the students liked the transition. Usually when a student wants to take a face-to-face class, it's because they want that face-to-face interaction on campus in a classroom with that instructor, not just to have the interaction, but in case there's an assignment coming up, questions, clarifications, and stuff like that, they feel more comfortable being in a classroom. Even our older students had issues with the transition because they didn't like having to do everything online. And there are a number of students that have the regular online classes. They pretty much rolled with no problem. But the transition wasn't just about doing all of your assignments on Canvas. That's the mainframe that we have for it, but also having to get accustomed to using Zoom and having to do that face-to-face remotely. There were a lot of students that didn't like that connection. There were some students that lost motivation, and it was hard for us to get some of those students back. In one of my classes, I had two student veterans that were coming to class face-to-face when we were on campus. They just started to open up, just started to participate in class, talk amongst them, their other classmates. And then as soon as we transitioned online, I lost both of them. I talked to them, tried to get them to come back, and there was just a loss of motivation. They found that they were disconnected, so it just didn't work for them to come back. Even some of our younger students, I have classes with the Travis Early Education Program, and they hated it. I mean, the students just hated it. Some of them had trouble trying to get laptops. So I remember when Superintendent Martinez was talking about that. That program allowed those students to get the laptops, getting the hotspots so that they could continue to take class. But it was a hard transition for them, particularly because so many of those that I had were graduating seniors. So they were ready for prom, and they were ready for the class trip and the whole experience of graduating. So it wasn't so much about the diploma, it's the experience that comes with that. I mean, you talked about how your graduation was the one. That's what people are looking for, that experience of buying the cap and gown, doing that with your parents and with your family, and just the pride you feel when you get that paper in your hand and you know that you've accomplished that. You know, those students kind of sort of felt cheated out of that a little bit, disconnected from their classmates. And I want to just say it wasn't just hard on the students, but also the instructors, because there were some instructors that were not used to using Canvas. You know, we had some instructors that's been teaching for 20 years. And when you're in government, you don't necessarily have to use the online. You know, you've got an old school lecturer, they're talking to you about what's going on, they've got everything written down on the board, or they're giving it to you in a straight lecture. So they didn't use Canvas. So not only did they had to learn how to use Canvas, they also had to learn how to use Zoom. So that was quite the transition, and we only had a few days to do it. We were called back on campus midway through spring break. I think it was like a Wednesday, and by that following Monday, the 23rd, we had to be ready to go. So
Yeah.
all of your lectures, all of your assignments, and that included previous assignments, because you had to make sure that all of your grades were visible for the students so that they wouldn't have to worry about what was going on. So everyone had to transition all of that online within a matter of a few days. And, I mean, we got it done. So it was like, you're chopping the mountain down with the edge of your hand.
Yeah.
So it was literally done. But, I mean, staff did a huge job, but the instructors, they held it together. And, the students and the instructors had an opportunity to kind of, share that frustration a little bit.
Yeah.
And then once we were able to kind of get it out of our system, we had to continue on. So students appreciated the summer momentum program, being able to come during the summer. If you were a full-time student or a part-time student during the summer, through the spring, you had a 2.0 GPA, you were able to come back during the summer and get a couple of classes for free, which is really good. I have a summer Maymester class right now that started up on the 18th, and we are finished at the end of this week. And I mean, those students have had to take like 16 weeks of classes really within 16 days.
Yeah.
So they had to do a lot of work in a very short time. But everyone, I mean, it's not a pleasant situation, but we're getting through it the best way we can.
Well, I thank you. I thank you for your perspective, because I think it's very important that we understand what's happening. A lot of us are saving face and say everything is okay, and we're lifting a heavy load right now, right? So I have children who go to St. Philip's Early College High School, and my daughter was like, I'm not doing this. Like, I don't understand why we have to do this. And it's like, baby, everybody has to do that. So I think to the point of you all as instructors being patient, understanding that this is something that nobody ever could have foreseen or predicted, understanding that we have to get through this together, and we can get through this together. So I thank you for your commitment, dedication to that. And then I'm also going to bring Dr. Brownlee and just kind of speak to that, because I think that's an important piece. We don't want to lose people because there's anxiety around this remote learning. How do we keep, like I said before, even at SAIC, there are teachers who have anxiety, and you can't ding them for it, or you can't, make them the bad guy because this is different. So, how is that looking, for the instructors over there at the college, Dr. Brown?
So what I will say is our educators across the board, our teachers, our instructors, St. Philip's College, Alamo colleges, even giving respect to San Antonio ISD, who's represented here on tonight. The educators across this nation have been the unsung heroes of this COVID-19. I mean, the sacrifices that they have made to stay and remain strong and be readily available. The learning that was associated with having to pivot very quickly to be able to move curriculum that was not already prepared within whatever the instructional online management tool present for us at Alamo College, St. Philip's College, that's Canvas, or whatever the system may be, for now all of a sudden for there to be Google integration, for there to be these various, I'm thinking about my son who's now graduated from kindergarten, and Class Dojo and these various tools that we just as parents didn't necessarily know of, but now it's becoming a part of our day in and day out means in which how we interact. So going back to St. Philip's College and Alamo Colleges, I will tell you that to Ms. Richardson, thank you for your work. Thank you for your sacrifice as a faculty member. Thank you to all of the faculty member and staff, all that have made sacrifices. And it was a very, very quick pivot. But our students depended upon us, our community depended upon us. And as we continue to lean forward and through COVID, we have to ensure the economic sustainability, vitality of our families, of this community as a whole. And so our sacrifices are very dependent upon our ability to be able to quickly pivot and serve our students.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to know what's happening, but it's another thing to be a part of that team that has to make it happen. So thank you all for your leadership, for your contribution to student success. And just thank you for always being available to the community. Thank you for accepting this invitation to meet with us and talk to us. Mr. Dillard, I'm going to get to you. I promise. I mean, I know you have some amazing stuff to add about the digital divide, and that is so important because I need to learn how do we deal with that too. But I did want to digress just a little bit. Hopefully Miss McGee doesn't get on me too much, but there was a post that Ms. Grant put up on yesterday. She was a part of the peaceful protest that happened downtown. Right now we have COVID, of course. You know, we have so much. It is the new normal that we're dealing with right now. But in education is so very important. But what Ms. Grant said was she had received some feedback, and I may not be quoting this exactly the way it was, but I believe I have the premise of the conversation. She received feedback about being a part of the system, working for the school board, and still having a viewpoint or a voice to speak to what's happening in our society. And she said something that has sat with me since I heard it on yesterday. And she said it would be irresponsible, because I think that's what it was. It said, is it responsible for you to talk about this? She said it would be irresponsible for us not to talk about this. And I think that's very important. And that's the reason why I felt like I just need to digress. And I'm asking just for maybe 3 minutes of dialogue about this, because education is important. But how are we equipping our young men of color to deal with the things that we are facing? I mean, you know, it's been hard to sleep. It's been hard to continue because we know that there is a systemic issue. And as we're educating our youth, what are we doing to give them education on the social aspect? What does it mean? You know, what are we talking to? I know we are working to do like an African-American studies class in SAIC. I'm very proud of that. And I think that speaks to a piece of the puzzle. But the reality is we're dealing with something else out here that our kids have to be equipped, especially our Black boys. You know, we have to understand that there is a piece in our educational institution that helps us navigate through these troubling times. So if y'all can just add to that, like I said, 3 minutes, because Mr. Dillard, I know you want to get to what you have to say, but I would be remiss if I didn't speak to this situation, because it is adding to the anxiety that we're dealing with, and we have to be honest about that and speak to that. So, are there any mentorship programs? Are there anything that are making our kids understand how to deal with the social part of what we're dealing with?
So I do 30 seconds. There's a lot of folks here. So I just do a quick blast, and then we can come back for more. This is a lot of this is in my wheelhouse. One thing, it's a lot of moving parts, and it's not really one thing. Yes, we got to look at our young men and educating them, but I also think it's a systemic approach that I like to take to educating the system. I look at how do we educate society. I work at a university. And so what we're doing in regards to what's taking place is we're creating what we're called the champions for change. And we're looking for partners across the university to develop an education training program to promote allies in terms of trying to develop ways to break down racial inequities across the institution. So these champions that we're putting in place, these partners, are across all races. And so that's one piece there, because we have to educate the system to allow the impediments to be removed to allow success to take place. Not the only thing, and I'm going to get off the mic because there's more things there, but I think we also need to look at that approach as well as educating our young Black men. I have a kindergartner too who just graduated, and I look at him every day and I'm like, I got to figure out what I'm going to do with this young man in terms of teaching him and educating him. So I'm not against that, believe me. But I also think we need to go over here and get to the system and then the policies and the processes that are not equitable, that allow societal norms to take place through those avenues. And that's where I like to spend a lot of my time and my work to help move the needle in this area.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's the root, right? Like, in order to address the issue, we have to identify the root. So thank you for that. And I'm going to ask Dr. Brownlee, Mr. Macias, and then I'm also going to ask Brian Dillard to kind of chime in on that, because I know you championed for this too before we get into your conversation about digital divide. But I just thought that this was way too important to not be able to talk about today. So,
Well, and
Dr.
I'll be brief real quick, Alicia, in regards to, I was at Travis Park this weekend as well, protesting and supporting this movement. The things that Myron had mentioned about the policy changes and the education, it all goes hand in hand. The more students of color that we educate and we put on a track to be engaged and be good citizens, the more we can change the hierarchy within corporate and governmental entities. But that can't happen until we start building that. So it is critically important that this Promise program really break the chain of poverty. And that's where I see more students, Black and brown, graduating and going down that trajectory so that they can change the policies that are necessary. So right now, even today, it's happening. The people in this forum here are contributing to that, but we need more of that. And that's going to be a difference.
And it's all about access, right? Like at the end of the day, we're tired of hearing about opportunity. The opportunity is, okay, we can do that. But it's about access. And I can speak to the masses about being a single mother when I first started this thing out. And I said I wanted to go back to school. And I went to St. Philip's and I did it in my 30s. And then I came out. And I am one of many who have that same story. So how do we give that access that allows us to unlock those voices and those strengths that can add to this conversation to make our entire circumstance better? You know what I mean? So thank you for that. I think that's very important. Yeah, Dr. Brownlee, if you want to jump in, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, I'll jump in there. Thank you, Trustee Macias. You heard Trustee Macias reference Alamo Promise. Superintendent Martinez is with us on tonight. We're grateful for that partnership. Over 8,100 Alamo Promise pledges, over 5,100 students have now prepared for that. As we talk about breaking that chain in poverty, it's not only just from an economic standpoint, but it's from a mental standpoint. And I'll just say that the mission of our institutions have a grave responsibility to the communities in which they serve, to advance not only the individual in the academic classroom, but the mind of that individual. So as we talk about addressing some of the challenges, Trustee Perry, as you were talking about, some of what we've all been watching across our television screens, not only just this weekend, but for quite some time, I will tell you that it's important that as we talk about productive citizenship, that we continue to advance the person, the individual, advance their mindset, advance their understanding, helping them to understand their sense of self, the importance of diversity, our Black, our brown, our white, no matter the color, creed, religion, lifestyle, and the quality and the value that each and every one of those lifestyles adds to a community, and being able to acknowledge and celebrate that diversity is very, very important. And education, as we're talking about on tonight, is at the forefront of that citizenship change.
Thank you so much. Last but not least, I don't want you to feel left out. Mr. Dillard, jump in. I'm being prompted to have you speak about digital divide, but the floor is yours. The floor is yours.
Well, first of all, I'm definitely honored to be on this distinguished panel. And man, folks in the education sector, I don't know how the hell y'all do it, but I'm happy that you do, and very grateful for what you do. So kind of just tapping into that, and then I'll jump into digital divide. So I'm the Chief Innovation Officer for the City of San Antonio. And a lot of people ask, what the hell does that mean? What do you actually do from the Office of Innovation? We often can pivot from digital divide to like, how do we do solid waste detection better when we do collection? One of those, this topic coming up is of importance to us. And we've been discussing this over the past week as a team of how can we assist not only our residents, but our public safety officers to do better in their jobs, whether that's, identifying de-escalation approaches based on evidence-based decision-making, or, how do we create a better community engagement between police officers and community, especially now in this new environment of social distancing and being separated. So it's definitely something there that we have a conversation on. As a young Black dude, from the east side of San Antonio is very important to me. It's definitely something I've had to talk to my staff about, to my peers, and just kind of understand as a city executive that works side by side with public safety officials. What's the conversation like there? And where's my part in that conversation as a city official? Some of y'all knew me before I was with the city. I was a little more vocal. And I've had to tone that down, but it's a little easier now because now I work side by side with those folks to actually make those decisions. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. I know we've been through this like multiple times over the past decades.
Too many times.
Too many times, but I feel like there's a different tone this time around. I feel like there's a lot more unification of voices, a lot louder voices saying enough is enough. We need to fix this. So I'm optimistic that this time around we'll kick it in the ass and we'll move forward. Excuse my language. So digital divide, yes. As everybody's mentioned here already, digital divide is something that's impacted our communities for years already, and COVID's just accelerated that impact. So from the city of San Antonio side, we started with this work last year. We started our digital divide assessment. So trying to identify where the gaps are throughout the city of San Antonio when it comes to digital divide. That's based on three aspects. One is broadband infrastructure. So understanding where internet is and isn't available throughout our neighborhoods. The second is access to devices. So understanding I can provide you an internet connection, but if you don't have a device to access the internet, it doesn't really matter. And then the third is probably the most important, is the digital literacy aspect. So understanding I can give you free internet, I can give you a free device, but if you don't know how to use it or what to use it for, then none of it really matters. So we started that survey. Luckily, we finished it up in February, right before COVID hit. And our next step for that was actually to take the survey, present it to council in May, and develop a strategy of digital inclusion. So kind of perfect timing. And my chief information officer, Craig Hopkins, always tells me, don't let a good crisis go to waste. So this is one of those times. So what we're doing is we've requested funding from the CARES Act from council. That'll be discussed this Thursday. We've requested about $27 million to invest in digital inclusion efforts in our most vulnerable communities. So the way we've chosen those vulnerable communities is the city of San Antonio has what's called an equity atlas map. It's available online. And we chose 50 neighborhoods, and we knew they were going to align with the demographics that we've already seen within our socioeconomic disadvantaged neighborhoods. So that's South Side, West Side, and East Side. We're currently working on a proof of concept there. So this first project, the first phase of the project, is really to provide that first leg of the stool, which is that broadband infrastructure. So understanding a lot of our neighborhoods don't have internet access in their neighborhoods, don't have that broadband fiber. How do we work with school districts like SAISD, like Alamo Colleges, in order to distribute internet for students, for K-12 students and college students to access? So that's where the city of San Antonio has really taken a step forward. Like I said, the hearing on that, or the council discussion on that, will take place this Thursday as they discuss the entire CARES Act package. So that $27 million is coming from that. We know that that's a large chunk of money to ask for digital inclusion, but digital inclusion, if it was a cheap solution, we would have done this years ago. And COVID has definitely shown that this impacts not only our most vulnerable communities, but residents across the board, businesses across the board, workforce development, education. So this is a big time for us to solve that. Not only that, this $27 million isn't going to solve the whole problem. We still have access to devices. We still have the literacy item. As Pedro mentioned, we have parents, grandparents that are now taking care of kids in home, having to do this distance learning, that have probably never accessed an internet browser. So where do we get those help desks, those customer supports for them? So we're working with public library to do that. There's a lot of questions to be answered along the way, but if we don't take the step out there, we won't figure out what those questions are. So really excited about that project, and really excited about the synergy that's going to happen between different agencies coming together. We're working with 15 public school districts right now throughout Bexar County and Bexar County. United Way, Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. There's a lot of partners in play here. We're all dropping those egos and really starting to work together, cost sharing, resource sharing, all of that to make sure our residents get what they need during this time of need.
And Trustee Perry, I just want to add something. I got a chance to meet with the city manager and we connected them with Dr. Thompson and as well as the chief technology officer of the city. And what was great was just learning, so first of all, they learned that we're finishing a dark fiber project that's going to be across every square mile of our district. That will be lighted up in the summer. And we're literally, we own that. Every one of our school buildings will have unlimited internet access and speed. And then we talked about how we would join forces, and there's a lot of federal laws, a lot of challenges with our commercial providers, but in essence, finding ways within the laws and within, working with our different partners to leverage our assets, the city's assets, because they have a fiber network as well through CPS. So how to really connect these pieces together to give access to our students. And so that's one of the things that just hearing everybody, I was very hopeful that there could be a long-term solution, just at least for students. Doesn't get to the other components that Mr. Diller is speaking about, which is working with parents, but one of the things that we saw right away was there's an opportunity, especially since we have, and we had the superintendent from Edgewood as well. So really starting with SAISD and Edgewood, starting with those two districts, because that's where the majority of the poverty is. And of course, there's poverty across the city, but if you can cover those two districts, imagine the possibilities. And of course, that's a big footprint of the Alamo colleges. And so, and for UTSA, the downtown campus. So again, I just know that I have never been more excited about the possibilities. And as Brian said, because the city was able to get CARE Act money, these are funds now, because that was a limitation before, was just having enough funding, and they now have this funding source. And so I can just attest to that, Brian, that we're looking forward to partnering with you guys. And I just think I'm more optimistic than ever that we could solve this issue, at least for San Antonio, at least for our poor school districts.
Thank you so much. I want to acknowledge what you said, Mr. Diller, about egos, being at the side, because I will tell you this, before we close out, we only have about 4 minutes. I don't think I've ever been more proud to be a resident of D2 than I am now, because there is unity. And although we may disagree, because we all come from different worlds, perspectives, we all have different desires and wants for our future. Just being present in the moment, adding to the conversation, go outside of adding to the conversation, actually putting our feet to the fire. Regardless of what happened in the past, we're here now. And I want to let you all know that I appreciate this time that we have spent together, and hopefully we can build on this conversation and make meaningful change, because at the end of the day, the people who are going to feel this new normal the most is our youth. And I think about my children, and I think about your babies who are now in kindergarten. We don't know what this life is going to look like for them when this is all over. But I think that it's very important to know that they understand that they have a community that's championing, supporting, rooting for them, and we can get all over our own selfish, desires or whatever it is. We can get over ourselves and get this work done. So I just want to, in closing, thank the audience. We appreciate everybody who joined us tonight. You could have found other things to do on a Monday night, but you were here with us, so we thank you so much for that. Thank you to our volunteers who were monitoring questions, because although we were here talking, there were also some other conversations going on in the background. So thank you to everybody who manned the chat. And a special thanks and appreciation to all of our elected officials, our officials, experts, to the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Friends of Sam Houston. And by the way, go either to the Lighthouse Luncheon San Antonio, Texas channel that you're watching now, the Friends of Sam Houston Facebook to see the celebratory luncheon. So they gave out some scholarships to some Sam Houston students. So make sure to tune into that. Thank you so much, Lighthouse volunteers, and to our host of volunteers. I'm gonna just end by saying again, and I know I've said it several times, this is a beginning that I really look forward to continuing. And hopefully this conversation does not stop here. Hopefully we can begin to pick up the phone and talk to one another outside of this space, send emails, continue to understand what's going on. I'm so happy to see that the city is here with us, and our state representatives are here with us, because this is a huge mountain to move. But I'm confident that everybody who's in this space are able to come together and make those things happen. So thank you so very much. Would you like to close and say anything, Representative Hawkins? I would have asked for a prayer, but I don't see a preacher on here tonight. You're muted.
All right, I said, Heavenly Father.
Amen.
All right. First of all, Alicia, I want to say thank you to you. You've done a great job. And I think we all agree this is just the beginning of a conversation around our educational infrastructure. I think there's no doubt we're all committed to what we need to do, and we need to continue this conversation. And I want to make sure that y'all know that the leadership of this community is working every day to resolve some of those challenges that you talked about. We're working with law enforcement. We're getting ready to have some town halls to focus around the big issues as you talk about change, and that is eliminating poverty, building stronger relationships with law enforcement, making sure that our kids don't have that learning loss that we're all afraid of, supporting SAISD and other school districts, as well as charter schools, to make sure that our kids are getting educated. That's what we want. That's what we need. The goal of these series, and that's why I love D2 Strong so much, the goal of these series is to start those conversations so they can snowball into some real action. So I want to thank everybody for participating. It was wonderful. And again, best wishes. And we're just going to say, you say folks can't pray? We're going to pray tonight and say, thank you, Father, for this opportunity to talk with a broad base of individuals to bring a message to the people that they desperately need. Again, thank you, Alicia. Appreciate you highly.
Amen. Thank you so much. And thank you again to everybody. Y'all have an amazing evening. Look for some emails from me this week, okay? All right, y'all take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good job. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.